walk in, if you don't notice it already, take a look at the street itself, like the surface of the street. Take a look at the abundance of trees that form this canopy all the way down. Consider that although there are similar architectural styles, every single house on this block is unique. You have sort of a circumstance where not only is every house unique, there's actually a structure on the block where you can say one of these is not like the other, and we'll see that in a minute. We are stopping at a spot that I think is not just because it's the beginning of this district for us, but an interesting spot to point out a few houses. This house was originally built by John Scott, who was an architect as well, designed by John Scott, and a mentor of, yes, Albert Kahn. John built the house next door, though, for himself. So this is built in the East Coast stick style, and up until maybe 8 or 9 years ago, didn't look as magnificent as it does now. It looked good. I mean, there's been a lot of attention and love and care for all these houses over the years. Certainly since a certain person that I'll talk about moved into the neighborhood in the 60s. But Jason, who owns this house, went to extraordinary lengths to restore it, including pulling all the siding off, pulling all that gingerbread off, finding out what the paint colors, the original paint colors were, as closely as he could, and matching them. There's the house right next door, which of course looks like an entirely different style, built in it's high Victorian style. Again, morning, good afternoon actually. Interesting feature about this house and the houses like it, where you see the dormers and the windows on the 3rd floor. It isn't just another pretty face. It was built 3 floors on purpose. It was built, because of property taxes. It was built that way. You could build a house that tall with 3 stories on it if the 3rd story was not considered living space. Although it's huge, that's probably 10 feet tall ceilings. You could live in that space, and someone probably does. But it wasn't considered livable space, and therefore the house was only taxed for 2 stories. So there's a method to the madness, and certainly there is more so when taxes are involved. Right across the street, this house, after it came into the ownership of a particular person, really was the impetus and the flashpoint for this area being designated as an historic district. It actually was designated as the first historic district in the city of Detroit, the West Canfield Historic District. So when that house was built in the 1870s, it was built for Colin Fox, who was the superintendent of Western Telegraph. He lived there for a number of years. It went through subsequent ownership since that time. And in the 1960s, a woman by the name of Beulah Grown Croxford, she's a retired school teacher. She used to spend a lot of time at estate sales. A lot of them in this area and elsewhere. And she was at an estate sale one day, and typically she'd stop and she'd pick up knickknacks and things like that. There was an estate sale going on at this house in particular, and it turns out also the house was for sale. And so she quickly reached out, I guess when she got home, to her husband Reggie, and she said, "Reggie, we're buying a house." That's the kind of person that Beulah was. We're buying a house. And sure enough, Beulah and Reggie bought this house. The houses in the area were in varying states of repair and disrepair. After they had built and had families lived in them, as the city went through tough times, as the area went through tough times, they got subdivided into boarding houses. And as populations moved in and out, and demographics changed, and business went away, the business that moved in at times was less than stellar. You had a lot of brothels in this area. This house across the street in particular was a brothel when Beulah moved in, Beulah and Reggie moved in. Beulah had started an organization called the Anti-Prostitution Association, something along those lines. Nevertheless, she was a decent human and cared about other humans, and she also cared about the architecture. So I'm not sure which one predominated in Beulah, but as legend has it, she went next door when she learned that there was going to be a raid on this brothel one night. And in an effort to preserve those two doors on the right-hand side, those original doors on the right-hand side, the entry of the house, she said, do me a favor, leave those doors unlocked. And sure enough, police raid shows up, police rush in. They didn't have to break down those doors and take those out. Those are original 1880s doors on that house.
And that's preservation at its finest.
Preservation at its finest, absolutely. So Beulah's bent really was right from the start to advocate for preservation of these homes, for increased preservation of these homes. Yeah, National, what was it? Animal Kingdom, or
yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of the show. Showing my age for sure. Was the preservation of these homes, and so folks who were already making a go of it were approached. Folks who weren't making a go of it were approached, and bit by bit, houses began to be upgraded, not changed, because what you're seeing here, these facades, these structures, this is how they were built. And the people who lived here, as I mentioned when we started, they were professionals. They were lawyers and doctors and ministers and superintendents of telegraph companies and dentists. So let's keep walking. As we move, I'll tell you about one night when Jason and his buddy Michael stopped into a bar where I was having a drink with my friend. The bar is called the Kiesling, and it's up Gesundheit, in the Milwaukee Junction area, so up by the Boulevard in Woodward. And it's on, I think it's on Baltimore actually. And it's a couple streets in. It's close to where the girl with the D earring is, where that huge mural is. And my friend and I are sitting at the bar. It's a corner bar, and the door is open. It's about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. We're enjoying our beverage, just kind of talking to the bartender. And these two guys walk in, looking like they'd had a hell of a day. And they sit down at the corner, and they both get a double shot of something. I think Jason's was a bourbon with a big block of ice in it, and I think Michael took his neat. And we're just, we're curious people, so my friend and I said, well, what's going on? What happened to you? What's going on with you guys today? He said, oh man, quite a day. Well, what happened? Well, we live over on West Canfield, and the street blew up. So what are you talking about the street blew up? A water main that had been installed in the 1880s that's about this tall and was the original water main exploded. And it blew all these bricks up into the air, filled the street with about a foot of water. And I said, my God, you live in these historic homes, do you have basements? I mean, what happened to the lower levels? He said, actually, we all lucked out. Nothing. Just all this water filled the street. So you can see it was eventually restored, but that was quite a moment when these guys walked in, and I thought, this beautiful block, what just happened? What's going to happen? Is this the unintended and unexpected demise of this block? So, as I mentioned, you have an instance where one of these is not like the other. So you look at these houses, you look across the street, that's not exactly a house. Well, it is, because it's multiple condos. But that was originally built as a single-family home. But Dr. Valpy and his wife, before he died, actually, I've learned, the idea was to have something of a passive income even then. So this is late 1800s, early 1900s. And so the plan was to tear down their house and build an apartment building. They would live in one and they would rent out the others. Well, Dr. Valpy died. And here you have a widow, right? Late 1800s, early 1900s. No pensions, no Social Security. What are you going to do? Well, finish the building. Finish the building, live in one, rent out the others. And it worked. And so Mrs. Valpy lived there until she died. It eventually changed hands, etc., and eventually became, I think in 1995, that was built into lofts. So those are all not lofts, but those are all I think there are 6 condos in there now. Couple of these are subdivided. This is subdivided into apartments. I don't think the house next door, I thought they were going to. This house, I believe, and again, some of these things are legend. So during a little government police action that didn't last back in the early 1900s, called Prohibition, there were, you may have heard this statistic, before Prohibition, there were maybe 300 bars and pubs in the city of Detroit, and after Prohibition, there was something like 3,500. Most illegal, if not all illegal. A lot of them, and the term was a blind pig. These secret spots where you could go to drink if you had the password. Allegedly, this little corner green door where the pineapple is on the side, this was a blind pig. It's a private home now. I'd knock on the door and ask the owners, but I just think it's rude. So, my recollection is no house on this block has been torn down except for one, and it was on this spot. So this owner actually succeeded, and I don't remember when it occurred. It was the only open spot on this whole block, and it's as a result of one house being torn down in the whole history of this block. I thought this was a fraternity house at some point. I think it's not now, but I think it was. It used to have Greek letters on the front of it. Sorry, I know you guys are fighting the allergens right now. We're walking right through all these trees. So bear with me, we're just about there. This house across the street, this is the one that the owners of Traffic Jam own as well. And what's remarkable about it is it sat there empty and literally growing algae on the outside of it for decades. And it looked like it was headed for the wrecking ball. It wasn't, the structure was sound, it looked like, but it was dark, and moss covered, and nobody lived there. It looked like
the stone was black.
Yeah, and black. I mean, it's just the building had turned black from just the elements and years. So when they purchased it, you can see how different it looks now. Not only is it that same reddish brick that what do you think that is?
Sandstone.
Sandstone. They've actually painted the grout in between the bricks as well, so they brought out all that coloration in the bricks. They've also put all the copper fascia around the dormers, replaced the windows. I'm sure they replaced the guts, as far as the HVAC and everything is concerned. One of the reasons that they couldn't do anything with it is it had no driveway. It had no driveway, it had no garage, it had no alley to speak of behind it. You couldn't park there. And you can't park on this side of the street. But they bought it. I think the idea is actually to turn it into 2, if not 4 spaces. I can't remember what the plan is, but that's definitely an example of somebody deciding, okay, I know no one's done anything with this. I have an idea. Let's see if we can make it work. So we are right at the corner of another important corner of the 3rd Avenue and Canfield area, the historic West Canfield. They'll talk about it in a second. But we can't turn this corner or step to the corner until I tell you what happened with what's going on with this street. So when Taylor got here, this street actually went all the way through. So from Woodward through where these apartment and townhouse buildings are now. This is the throughway further west of here. And like any throughway, people taking a shortcut through a neighborhood, people would zip down here at top speed, 40, 50 miles an hour, because they could. You couldn't do anything about it. What was the city going to do? No one put in speed bumps. Really, nothing was done to alter that until Beulah got the idea. She became aware that these bricks, or that a storehouse of bricks, was being held at historic Fort Wayne in Southwest Detroit, and these bricks had been uncovered when they were digging the hole for the Renaissance Center down by the river. And this was brickwork that actually lined Atwater, I am told. Well, she heard about these bricks, and she struck upon the idea that if we lined this with bricks, it would be beautiful. And if you went over 20 miles an hour down this street, you would shake out the undercarriage of the car and your kidneys. So she talked some people into it. She's a very persuasive lady. And one by one, they replaced these bricks from 3rd all the way down to 2nd. And now you cannot go fast down the street. It actually deadens a lot of the sound as well. It certainly adds some aesthetic, to the street together with the tree canopy. This place, when I say it's one of the most intact blocks of this kind of architecture and structure in the city, it's for all of those reasons, not the least of which was beautiful. So, all right, quick peek around the corner.